Torey Lovullo pulls an Uno reverse card and ejects an entire crew of umpires as the Snake Sluggers have themselves a series as the D-backs take the win by the bay. It's your series recap T-backs podcast coming up next.
Perdomo makes the play.
And a high fly ball. No doubt about this. Home run Marte.
They're going to send the ball all the way around. Corbin Carroll with an inside the park answer back.
I'm Ivan Melendez.
Luis Gonzalez.
I'm Torey Lovullo, and you're listening to the T-backs podcast.
T-backs podcast.
T-backs podcast.
Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the T-backs podcast, where we bring you all the hottest Arizona Diamondbacks tea and talk from across the pond here in London. We're proud to be Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast. And it's a weird one today because we're recording this in the morning after the end of a long slog of games and series on the road and at home. 16 matches in 16 days. Diamondbacks finally get themselves an off day today, and we're reacting to the drama that was the series against the Giants over in San Francisco at Oracle Park, which culminated in, let's just say it was a fiery and dramatic game in Game 3, so let's get you all caught up. Giants, Game 1, Corbin Carroll single-handedly carried the offense to get the victory. He sort of had himself his own little slugging competition. Merrill Kelly was on the mound, gave us 7 strong innings of work, looked super sharp. His finishing line of 7 innings pitched, 8 hits, for 7 of those for singles, so not getting hit super hard. 1 run, 1 earned, no BBs, 8 Ks, and 103 pitches. And the other thing of note is Air Lourdes, which is hopefully coming soon to somebody's D-backs related shop, because he did his best, like Michael Air Jordan impression, to catch an amazing fly ball that was probably making its way to the warning track out in left field. Lourdes sort of back-flipped, leant back, stuck his arm backwards over his head and collected that one. So all of you haters who've been questioning Lourdes Gurriel's defense, I think that's probably going to have shut you up. Game 2, however, was a bit of a classic white flag job. Diamondbacks went 3 runs down after Brandon Pfaadt didn't really have his stuff sorted out. Torey Lovullo said, hey, whatever, let's put Juan Murillo in for the 5th inning after Pfaadt had allowed 4 earned on 6 hits in 4 innings, throwing 95 pitches. And Murillo was followed by a classic Joe Manaply disaster class, who immediately gave the Giants' best power batter, Jung-Ho Lee, a 3-run homer off an 87-mile-an-hour meatball. And, you can't be throwing that kind of velocity in the major leagues anymore. I hate to say it, but Joe Manaply, 2022 All-Star, Diamondbacks legend, it's time to get DFA'd. And I don't like calling for a player to just be cut from the roster like that in such a manner, but Joe Manaply has given a lot to this organization, but I don't think he has very much left to give. People are saying, Hazen, massive L keeping him in the organization. Torey, massive L by throwing him in the 8th and 9th inning. And a few people are saying injury is probably the only way we're going to be able to get Manaply away from this roster, because, he's a lefty and we're a little low on lefties. So a little bit like how we finally managed to escape the terrorism that was Castro last year coming out of the bullpen. I think it's probably going to have to be the same thing with Joe Manaply today, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, this is a Diamondbacks team that, shouldn't be throwing the white flag all the time the moment you have a small run deficit. We've done a lot of work already in terms of overturning large deficits in runs and having big comeback jobs and bringing back the old, it's the answer backs and they've answered back type thing. But ultimately, we're not doing a huge amount of that, or we're not even trying to do that, because we're saying, okay, this game is beyond saving. Let's put in, the B team when it comes to the bullpen. And it's just not great. There's some good arms in that pen, but we seem to have the ones we'll put in regardless, and then we have just the give up crew, as they seem to be. But we also like to focus on the positives on this show, so let's talk about Corbin Carroll's 14th home run of the year, which tied him at the time with Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber for the major league record right now. So I think we have to expect we're going to see Corbin in the home run derby this year at the least, right? His swing adjustments, we all said, it'll help him generate a lot more pop at the plate. But did anyone really think he was going to be all of a sudden a power hitter? with his speed on bases and stuff, he's only got 6 stolen bases on the year, but he's got 14 home runs. He needs to pick up the stolen bases if we're going to get a Corbin Carroll 50-50 season. Like, I don't know if anyone really saw that coming, but, he got the sophomore slump out the way last year, and he's absolutely raking. And clearly a lot of teams are afraid to pitch to him as well. He picks up walks when he can as well. His plate discipline has really improved from, the terrorist flying at high fastballs all the time that we'd seen last year. And then here's another positive. Jordan Lawler's back. He made his major league return in Game 2. Diamondbacks had gotten to Robbie Ray pretty early in that game after the Giants left. He had allowed just 3 earned runs over his last 3 starts. Diamondbacks put up 3 runs on the board after Ray's 16th pitch of the first inning. But yeah, it was a classic bullpen job and a lack of run support from anyone who wasn't named Corbin Carroll, which made it the 11th game in a row where the Diamondbacks are win-loss in sequence, which is as inconsistent as you can be in Major League Baseball, and the Diamondbacks have been doing it. And I think inconsistency had sort of highlighted a lot of the reason why we've got a positive winning record, but we're still 4th in the division. Like, there are a lot of games that Diamondbacks either could have or should have or needed to have won that they let get away from them in good situations, and that was another case of what happened Game 2, San Francisco. But it was Ketel Marte taking that L yesterday very personally. Game 3, he smashed a homer to right field in the first inning before Eugenio Suarez, Pavin Smith, Geraldo Perdomo, and Alek Thomas ran 4 consecutive hits to score on no outs in the second. Jose Herrera's strong month of May continued, which basically he tried to sack bunt several times, and the Giants said, no, we don't want an out. We actually want to load the bases instead. Ended up drawing a walk. And Corbin Carroll got a hold of one, smacked it down the right field line, but it was caught by what I will say, fair play, is a sensational play by VR at first for the Giants, which saved probably at least 2 runs and may have been a bases clearing double, turned the inning around in an instant. So, fair play, all things considered. The Diamondbacks didn't let the fact that they were facing a weaker pitcher and a 1-4 record going into the game change things. They went up slugging, but the Giants didn't roll over and die either. However, I'm willing to be a little less generous today to Eduardo Rodriguez because of the sheer number of batters who get on base against him. This has been a trend for a lot of Erod's starts throughout the year, and it was no different in Game 3 against the Giants. But the Diamondbacks were doing the same to Hicks, the Giants starter, and Gino Suarez got a down-and-in fastball out of the park off of an emergency bullpen call, Hayden Birdsong, who had to come in a third, who D-Backs have previously seen him be a starter for the Giants, but he's in the long relief role, emergency long relief out of the pen, and I think Bob Brenly and co. in the booth were saying, yeah, maybe the Giants are going to swap him around, like Hicks for Birdsong might be a bullpen to starter to bullpen swap at some point later in the year. And I think we have to be considering that the same thing is going to potentially happen with Erod and Ryan Nelson, given the current status of things. Erod did give himself a 1-2-3 third inning, and Ketel Marte got himself another homer. But not to be outdone, Erod allowed plenty more runners and 2 runs in the 4th inning. So, yeah, Ryan Thompson had to jump in, escape to jam. And Ryan Nelson, who we do obviously want to stay stretched out in long relief to make sure he can step into the starting role if need be. He had done that previously for Corbin Burns against the Mets and had also sat down all 6 Dodgers he faced in the last series. Did get his way through the 6th, but Jung-Ho Lee made trouble off a batting practice ball right in the middle of the plate to cut the lead to 2 in the 7th inning. Jordan Lawler made a great spinning grab on one knee after coming into the game at second, so, it's nice to know his defense was looking solid to help Nelly get through the 7th. Until Lawler made a rookie inning-ending mistake. It should have been probably an easy ground out, but he sort of blocked the runner as the runner rounded second. He had his back to the base and was standing full on in the base path. So that was ultimately called an obstruction call, and this is where it all got pretty intense and started tugging at the base of your stomach if you're a Diamondbacks fan watching, especially if you're a Diamondbacks fan watching late at night and starting to be like, what on earth is going on? There was some debate on the field about, whether the call was obstruction or not, because the runner for the Giants went down, didn't get back to the base, and was tagged out after Pavin Smith didn't manage to quite make the play to get the runner at first. Torey Lovullo, however, didn't think so. He blew up in the faces of all 4 umpires. I think that was a reaction to them putting the runners on second and third instead of first and second like they probably should have. And Torey's sacrifice at least did get the point across, and Jeff Bannister taking over in the dugout made sure that common sense sort of prevailed. Ryan Nelson came in, had Wilmer Flores popping up, got through the eighth, but it was far more dramatic than it needed to be because we're the Diamondbacks, so nothing can ever be that simple. The complications continued as Pavin seemingly injured his right ankle while getting picked off, and Shelby Miller was sent in to get the save, and again, wasn't ever going to be a simple job, but we're the Diamondbacks, so yeah, let's make it even more complicated. He loaded the bases and walked in a run, and it was starting to really feel like the atmosphere in San Francisco was getting on top of the Diamondbacks. The pressure was there, but he did get the save in the end to win the game and the series. So I'm recording this the following morning as the Diamondbacks are on their first off day in 16 games, and the review of those 16 games is having gone 8 for 8 in that stretch. But let's not forget that the opponents have been the Phillies, the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Giants, who'll all probably be in the postseason. And that's not a bad record by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, we were exactly 500 through that stretch. But it's a very tough stretch of games to have played. Diamondbacks are a team that's had probably one of the toughest opening bits of the season. I think we can sort of say the opening bit of the season is very much over now. But the Diamondbacks have had a really tough lot of it, and they've managed to get through it. We've still got a positive record. And some of the conclusions we can take from that whole sequence, well, firstly, Diamondbacks fans won't ever be happy with anything, seeing how the online fandom clamored for Jordan Lawler to get in the lineups, but also completely hated seeing Ketel Marte, Geraldo Perdomo, or Eugenio Suarez rested in the infield. I may sound a bit like a broken record, but you can't always choose, and of course, there's a good amount of stuff Torey Lovullo knows about baseball that us armchair GMs don't. If I was swapping someone in or out for Jordan Lawler in today's game, admittedly, it wouldn't have been Ketel Marte going off of the back of 2 home runs back-to-back. But maybe that's something about his recovery plan that, once again, Torey Lovullo knows more about than us. Maybe he's, like I said last week, maybe he's having to listen to the medical staff. Maybe he's talking to the physios, the assistant coaches, the hitting coaches, saying, okay, yeah, base running coaches, Ketel probably should be, getting 2 ABs, and then if you have Lawler available, let's put Lawler in, and that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It doesn't overdo the physical strain and workload on Ketel, and it gets Jordan Lawler at least 2 at-bats, probably. So, yeah, it seems kind of obvious when you actually think about it, but I guess no one's ever going to be happy. And you're also going to see, of course, one of those guys, potentially Gino or Ketel, get days at DH as well, and Jordan Lawler's going to play the full game in the infield in defense. So that's going to happen, and especially with a series against the Colorado Rockies coming up next, I think that's going to be a series where you are going to see a certain amount of rotation. Torey, if you're listening, don't rotate everybody, because the moment you start getting complacent and say, oh, it's just the Rockies, is inevitably the days where the D-backs have the most D-backs of days and somehow managed to get spanked by Brenton Doyle and co. And I really don't want to see that happen. But either way, Torey is clearly stressed out enough by all of the negative press. The way he went over those umpires in Game 3 after that obstruction call is anything to go by. He was hot. And he didn't just go around and say, hey, go to the crew chief, hey, that's a bad call. What the hell are you doing? He went after every single one of that umpire crew. They all sort of came in and had a discussion. And then he seemed fairly like, oh, come on, guys, like, just whatever. And then whatever they said got him absolutely incensed, because he was hot. He blew up at something, I think it was the first base umpire actually ended up saying to him. And he walked around the diamond and he pointed at every one of that umpire crew and he said, yeah, you're out, ejected. You're ejected. You're out too. You should get out of here. And like, I don't think you can just pull an Uno reverse and say, no, you eject. But that's kind of what Torey did. And everyone was saying, yeah, good for you, Skip. Good for you for getting your money's worth, because, you're a Major League Baseball manager. You've got to stand up for your team and your players. So, yeah, get hot, scream in people's faces, do what you feel you got to do. But it didn't stop there. Torey came down, had a quick word with, I think it was Jeff Bannister, the assistant coach, and Jeff Bannister came back out and was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep the argument going, and didn't get ejected. He oversaw the rest of the game. And clearly they weren't happy, but yeah, like I said earlier, common sense did prevail. Jeff Bannister sort of did convince the umps to put the runners back on first and second, and ultimately no damage was done as a pop-up was induced by Ryan Nelson, and that ended the inning because the out that Jordan Lawler got tagging the guy who got injured on the floor after running into Jordan Lawler was the first out before they overruled the play. It was the third out before they overruled the play, sorry. And, there were already 2 outs anyway, so it wasn't a huge drama, but there were a lot of Giants base runners at various points of the game today, and that was more than enough to stress me out, at least, before you talk about, Shelby Miller loading the bases and walking in a run in the 9th inning as pretty much only throwing the fastball and a couple of sliders in there. It's like, okay, come on, Shelby. He got away with one as well. Like, Mike Yastrzemski came in as a pinch hitter, and Shelby really threw him a challenge fastball right over the heart of the plate, and Yastrzemski couldn't catch up to it. So I think, 95 to 97 fastball is not exactly the fastest in the major leagues, but hey, I guess Shelby Miller, like we said, has that elite fastball where he can sort of throw it wherever he wants, and that did get the job done ultimately in the end. But speaking of stress, right now I'm sitting here sipping my tea and I'm looking at the standings, and I don't think that stressing out so hard you plop a blood vessel is the way to go right now. The Diamondbacks are 23 and 21 right now, and being able to take 4 of 7 games from our 2 division rivals we've played so far, the Dodgers and the Giants, in the past week is a very good sign, especially heading into 3 against the Rockies, which, again, no disrespect to the Rockies, I'm sorry, they're worse than the White Sox from last year. That does represent a very good chance at a sweep at Chase Field before another road trip to LA comes along. But I'm feeling good about that road trip to LA as well. Corbin Carroll's going to get another run at a guy who recently returned from the injury list in the Dodgers starting rotation. They've swapped out Roki Sasaki with supposed shoulder inflammation. That's probably a phantom IL stint. But Clayton Kershaw is back. And if you remember, Corbin Carroll got his 3 first Major League home runs off 3 of the league's most ace pitchers at the time in 2023 when he came in and had that Rookie of the Year season. His first one was over Yu Darvish, second was over Clayton Kershaw, and the third was over Max Scherzer. And Clayton Kershaw especially, like that Clayton Kershaw curve that Corbin took absolutely yard in Dodgers Field was an absolute tear. And Corbin's currently 5 for 8 with 3 homers against the future Hall of Famer. And he will be way up for that one, considering that, he's currently tied for leader of home runs in the major leagues alongside Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber on 14. So all things point to a run being a very strong set of games coming up. And that's before you even talk about, Ketel Marte and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. both getting their bats hot. There's been homers and grand slams galore from those two. Ketel Marte's first home run yesterday against Hicks, against the Giants, that was an absolute golf swing. It was inch and a half below the bottom left corner of the zone looking from the mound. And Ketel Marte absolutely golfed that one out of here. I really don't know how he did it, and then came straight back up, worked into a strong count. I think it was off a 3-2 in his second home run. He got a full count in the end after basically getting hit 3-1, fouled off 3-2, but he was all over the next pitch and absolutely line drove that one into the Levi's Landing in San Francisco. So that's a very strong sign. The few things I might be concerned about is, Erod once again didn't get far into a game. Despite the fact he finished ahead, he didn't go enough innings to get the win. The win actually went to Ryan Thompson yesterday, who, is 1-0 now for the season, but has a 5.40 ERA, so maybe that needs to be a bit better off. But you look at how Shelby Miller's coming and getting on. He gave us a bit of a heart attack, but he's 3-0 with a 1.45 ERA on the season now. And, for a guy who we were like, maybe he's just sort of a whatever addition to camp. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the show, but Shelby Miller, what an addition he has been. In terms of his pitching stats right now, it's kind of crazy. Like, in his last 7 games, he has a 3.86 ERA, but across the season, he's much lower. He's had 3 save opportunities and has saved 3, and across 7 innings pitched as well. So he's not just like a 9th inning guy. I think very much you have to consider, he is the closer for the day now, but it's kind of mad that Shelby Miller has become as good as he has. When you look around the leagues as well, like you think about some of the players, like Ryan Helsley was a guy we were looking at maybe going and getting a closer. I didn't see much going on that front now. Wasn't used out of the Cardinals bullpen yesterday as they absolutely beat up on the Phillies, so maybe we don't need him. I hesitate to say that because inevitably the curse of whatever I say on this podcast turns out to be completely wrong a week later, or like 5 minutes after I hit publish on the episode, something else happens. But yeah, if there was going to be anything else going on right now, do we need a closer? If Justin Martinez is not far away, if Justin Martinez's velocity is back, as long as his location is fine, I'm not too concerned about that. AJ Puck is obviously a little way away, but Kendall Graveman is obviously back in the Diamondbacks bullpen now too, coming off of his recovery stint. And, again, like I said, Dre Jameson, clearly not that far away either. So, yeah, we can look around and be jealous of other teams' closers like we talked about. I said the number one candidate for a closer that we should go and get in this offseason was Andres Munoz over at the Seattle Mariners, who I'm excited to go and see play in Seattle with the Home Run Travel Company later this month, which is going to be pretty cool. Or somebody like Luke Weaver, Diamondbacks legend, has got 4 saves on the year for the Yankees now. Do we need to start comparing these guys and saying, okay, well, what can the Diamondbacks afford? What can we realistically give up? I think a couple of very good mock trades were put together if we're going to go and get Ryan Helsley. I'm never against having a guy who can locate a solid 102 mile an hour fastball as the closer. But at the end of the day, Justin Martinez has a 100 mile an hour sinker, fastball, splitter, slider. That's a good combination. If he can get all 4 of those pitches working the way we've sort of seen him do at times, then yeah, what are we worried about exactly? Right now in the divisional standings, we are still 4th in the division, 23 and 21, 5 games back off of the Dodgers in first, who are 28 and 15. But we're only 2 games back from the Giants. We are 4 games back from the Padres, but that's probably not the kind of charts we should be looking at right now. It's the wild card spots that is really the interesting thing. As San Francisco, like in the division, we're 2 games back from them, and they occupy the final wild card spot. Right now, we're 1 game back from St. Louis, who are in like the best of the rest position. They're 1 game back from San Fran. But I think Philadelphia are still actually within reach as well. Like the Phillies, they're 25 and 18 at a 5.81 PCT versus AZ of 5.23. So 2.5 games back from the Phillies, getting into a stretch of the season where they have a much tougher run than we do. I think it's very possible. Like, we've got a little bit of a margin to Atlanta and Milwaukee, who are 3.5 and 4 games back from San Francisco and 1.5 and 2 games back from us. But Atlanta are on a losing streak. And then above us, the Phillies and the Giants are on a losing streak. Giants, of course, are on a losing streak thanks to us. So, yeah. Are we super concerned? No, absolutely not. Because we are in a strong position. We are getting a lot of our key guys back off of the injury list. We seem to be managing what had been kind of an injury crisis pretty well. What are the Diamondbacks fans coming up with something to complain about? Yeah, everything, because they're Diamondbacks fans. That's what they're going to do. But at the same time, there's not much else we really can do with the resources we have. We've made the statements for stuff this week and said, yeah, this is what we are capable of. We can beat one of the teams that are our rivals. Ultimately, yeah, Shelby Miller's been the best relief pitcher, but Justin Martinez is available. But we have guys who are capable of doing the kind of standard of baseball that we want to see. And we have guys who are capable of beating teams that we thought, oh yeah, maybe they'll give us some trouble. We won a series against the Giants. They're our closest rival right now in the division. And we've shown that over a stretch of 3 games of baseball, which admittedly isn't a huge sample size, but even with adversity, we have shown we are better than them in that series. And that's on their home turf as well. When you're getting towards the business end of the season, and if there's a little bit of belief from the Diamondbacks fans, we can get Chase Field absolutely rocking. We can make it a snake pit. And if that's the case, then teams aren't going to want to come here and just try and, scrape whatever. They're going to have to fight for everything they want to get, especially if, we're starting to see our starting pitchers. Erod, I'm looking at you as the outlier here. But Corbin Burns and Zach Gallen finally getting a bit of a handle on things. Brandon Pfaadt's been the mainstay of the rotation so far in terms of having the best record. I know he lost quite badly the other day, but Merrill Kelly's been okay. Brandon Pfaadt's been so far on a Cy Young tear for the most part. If Zach Gallen and Corbin Burns can finally get their acts together, again, we talked about this at the start of the season. Diamondbacks have a super strong starting rotation. If Eduardo Rodriguez can, like I said on the broadcast, he's aware of what he's doing wrong. He just hasn't figured out how to fix it yet. I'm like, okay, great. Hurry up and figure out how to fix it, please, Erod. But if he can figure out how to fix what he knows is wrong with his delivery right now, especially like that wild location where he's just not hitting the zone the way he wants. Like, we've seen him go aggressive with a day where he finally focused on like hitting the zone with the sinker rather than trying to get swing or miss on the slider and the changeup. And he ended up with 13 Ks on that day and ultimately still didn't get a game win. But he can be a guy who's much more aggressive than we've seen him be kind of known for being. If he can get that sorted out alongside Corbin Burns finally getting the location right on his cutter, like we talked about the difference between pitching in Milwaukee and pitching in Arizona. If Corbin Burns can get right and Eduardo Rodriguez can get right and Zach Gallen can continue to get right, because so far he's only had good games against New York teams, we're golden. And ultimately, what more can the Diamondbacks fans really ask for? The lineup has been managed fairly controversially, but I'm still a guy who's saying, yeah, we've got to back Torey here, because I don't see too many other candidates you could go out and say, yeah, okay, you're the manager for the Diamondbacks now. Like, ultimately, this isn't the Premier League. You can't just sack somebody and hire somebody else who's got sacked by somebody else last week and expect things to actually change. Like, who are we going to go and get? Like, are we going to go and get the guys who've been fired from the Pirates and the Rockies in the last week? No, of course we're not. Because they're guys who were fired for having a losing record. You want to replace one of the longest tenured managers in Major League Baseball, the guy who got us to the World Series in 2023, the guy who almost got us to the playoffs last year, the guy who's got us a positive winning record this year, and replace him with someone who's lost their job because they've lost too many baseball tech games this year? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't see why Diamondbacks fans would want that. And after that, a little bit of a mini rant, I'm getting hot just like Torey, and I think it's time to probably call this one a day. We want to say thank you very much for listening. Please make sure to go and check out our friends I mentioned earlier over at the Home Run Travel Company. If you're one of our listeners in the UK and you want to book yourself a spot on an all-inclusive baseball trip, hitting up a number of awesome ballparks across the West or the East Coast, or maybe the All-Star Game, or maybe Japan in 2027, who knows? Go and check out the Home Run Travel Company over on social media, and also make sure you like and subscribe to wherever you're listening to the show. We're also on social media at T-Backs Podcast. We're also on TikTok over at T-Backs, where you can see little short snippets of what I get up to as a baseball fan living in the UK. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.